In the last lesson, we started exploring the various facilities offered to mutual fund investors. We saw how the growth option was great for investors looking to create long-term wealth. We also briefly spoke about dividends as one of the facilities offered by mutual funds. In this lesson, we'll be taking a closer look at what dividends actually are, the different types of options this facility offers, and the type of investor for whom this facility is best suited. Let's start by understanding what dividends actually are. Dividend simply means a sum of money that's paid to investors, either every year or every quarter or every month. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? But remember, every time you get a dividend payout, the NAV of your units drop in proportion to the payout. How does this work exactly? Let's look at this example. Let's assume there's a fund with an NAV of 10 rupees. Now, let's imagine that NAV grows to 15 rupees. Say the mutual fund then declares a dividend of 2 rupees. The NAV of that fund will then fall by 2 rupees, meaning the new NAV will now be 13 rupees and not 15. So what type of investor should choose such a facility? Remember the first question we asked ourselves in the last lesson? What's my investment goal? Let's consider that question once again. You see, there are some folks who'd rather wait patiently as their wealth grows over a long period of time. But there are also others who might be looking for a regular source of income. And though this income might not be fixed, it definitely helps in keeping up with various payments. Meaning, this option works perfectly for people who are looking to book profits on a regular basis. Now, the ideal facility for such folks is what we call the dividend payout option. What happens in this scenario is that when a fund makes a profit, a percentage of the profits is then distributed to investors. This is done by way of dividends paid to them as cash in their bank accounts. These payouts tend to be in proportion to their investment.
Also, these dividends are taxable in the hands of the investors. But the TDS will be deducted if the dividend amount is more than rupees 5,000.
But there are a couple of things to keep in mind. The first thing to remember is that each time a dividend is declared and distributed, the NAV or net asset value of the fund falls to an extent that dividends are paid out. This new value is called the post-dividend NAV or ex-dividend NAV. There are also a couple of mutual fund facilities in which a fund declares a dividend but doesn't give you a cash payout. What? Then where does the money go, you must be wondering? Let's take a closer look. One of the facilities you can opt for is called dividend reinvestment. With this facility, though dividends are declared, they aren't paid out to you in cash. They are instead reinvested in the same scheme. And when these dividends are reinvested into your fund, you are given extra units at the post-dividend NAV. I'm sure you can see how there are two major benefits in choosing this type of facility. The first one seems obvious, doesn't it? The number of units you hold increases. The other benefit is that because the dividend earned is reinvested and held for a longer period of time, you gain from capital appreciation. Still not sure how it all works? Come, let's do some math and figure it out all together. Say you invest 10,000 rupees in a fund with an NAV of 10 rupees per unit. This means you're holding exactly 1,000 units at the start of your investment. Let's imagine that after a year, your fund earns 20% profit. This would bring your NAV up to 12 rupees per unit. If after this, your fund declares a dividend of 1 rupee per unit, two things will happen. First, you become entitled to a total of 1,000 rupees as a dividend payout. And second, your NAV falls to 11 rupees per unit, which then becomes your post-dividend NAV. If you reinvest that 1,000 rupees into the same scheme, you'll be allotted extra units at the post-dividend NAV. This would give you 90.91 extra units, meaning you go from owning 1,000 units to owning a little over 1,090 units. How about that? Now imagine you hold on to that investment for another year before redeeming it. And after that 1 year of waiting, your NAV rises to 12 rupees and 50 paise per unit. This means that in the 2 years you've chosen to stay invested, you've earned a profit of around 3,636 rupees at a compounded annual return of 16.77%. However, investors are taxed when they opt for this facility. I'm sure you've noticed the many ways in which dividend reinvestment facility is similar to the growth option that we learnt about in the last lesson. Both options encourage you to stay invested for a longer period of time and generate long-term wealth due to capital appreciation. Between the two, the growth option is simpler to track when you're filing your returns. Tracking dividends received can be far more time-consuming and complicated in comparison. We've now seen that once dividends are declared, you can either receive those dividends as cash in your bank account or reinvest them in the same scheme. But that's not all. You also have the option of choosing the dividend transfer plan. This plan allows you to take dividends declared by the fund house and transfer them to any other scheme, just as long as those other schemes are offered by the same fund house. The way you benefit from such an option is that you then have the chance to diversify your portfolio or asset class and reduce the risk of being invested in just one fund. And that about does it for our lesson on dividend-related facilities. We'll now move on to the next lesson, where the key word is systematic. We'll show you how to make the most of systematic investment and systematic transfer plans. So what are you waiting for? Let's go.